right, women's basketball fans, specifically New York Liberty fans, we have a new head coach. We got to learn a little bit more about Chris DeMarco today. We'll get into that, this new coaching trend and what we make of it, and then a few other things on today's episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Gotta get up, gotta get up, gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. All right, welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We are on Black Rosie Media, which is a platform where we empower Black women and melanated creators like Brian and I in sports media. If you are not already subscribed, please do subscribe. We have a lot of new content coming to Black Rosie Media, including hockey content. We're going to have some soccer collabs come the spring. And of course, basketball at Gotta Get Up and Tempestagi Talk, which is our Seattle Storm podcast. But I am here with Brian Fleurantin, the curator of our Women's Basketball Roundup newsletter. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to that. Talked a little bit about Chris DeMarco and a few of the most recent newsletters, Brian, but we got to hear from the man himself in the planet of Brooklyn. Also did some activations today. We're going to get into all of that. But first, how you living, Brian? It's the end of the year. Can you even believe we're almost to 2026?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right?
That's it. It flies by a little bit faster and a little bit more pleasantly after you win a championship. But, that's what happens. You get spoiled. So Vegas gets another party and we're just in the off season. But Brian, listen, right before we hopped on, a few things. We're going to get into what we love, but I have to give a shout out to Iowa State. Continued their undefeated streak. Just before we hopped on, a little bit of the reason why I hopped on a little late is I was looking at that game, Iowa State down to the wire in the Jimmy V Classic. And then also I was watching that game, and then the booyah, the Stuart Scott 30 for 30 came on today. So I was watching a little bit of that. Stuart Scott, just a great personality, sports media personality. I cannot wait to finish that documentary because it looks really, really good. But we have a lot of things coming up, including that we're hoping that we will be back in Barclays Center for women's basketball. No, not New York Liberty basketball, but the Women's Champions Classic. Iowa will be there, UConn, Louisville, and Tennessee. Same group as last year. Brian and I are hoping to be there. So, we'll have to put something together. But as always, let us know where you're calling in from. Hey, Damien, we're going to talk about your boy DeMarco. We're going to get into it. But that's what's on the docket for today. We're going to talk about Chris DeMarco, going to break down what we heard from him. We wanted to have this conversation on the last episode, Brian, but we just had such a great time talking with Roberta and really diving into, even though the Seattle Storm have the number 3 overall pick, what are they actually going to do with the number 3 overall pick? And that took some time. But on today's episode, because we're talking about DeMarco and he closes out all of the coaching, head coaching positions that were open and vacant, it gives us a chance to talk a little bit about what is this coaching trend that we're seeing. I wrote about it. I know you talked about it in the newsletter. Again, Women's Basketball Roundup, WBB Roundup for short. Go check it out. So we're going to get into that. And then, I want to talk also, about some of the WNBA alternatives. Are they actually alternatives? Is it really just off-season stuff? That was something that DeMarco and Jonathan Cole brought up in the press conference. So we'll get into that. And then we'll get into some what we love. All right, let's get into it. Brian, we heard from Chris DeMarco. What stood out to you in his press conference?
I was impressed. I got in early. They had breakfast first, so we was all situated. Got in, make sure everything was good to go. Full house. Some guest appearances from Benaisha, Sab, Izzy, and Niara, along with Clara and Kia. So we got a full house there. Chris and JK held the podium for a good while. And then after, you mentioned up top, the activation at the Brooklyn Basketball Training Center. So for folks who aren't familiar, it's like it used to be an old Modell's that's like right across from Barclays Center, and it was right next. It's like right across from the 5 train, like 2, 3, 4, 5, all the big public transport, and it's super accessible. I've been in there like this. This was my 3rd time being in there today. Really wonderful space. They've done a really good and deliberate job about making sure that people, like kids from the community, can access that kind of space and really sort of have that area for basketball, sports, and other activities. So after the presser wrapped up, Chris went there. He was really engaging with the young folks, really sort of like taking time to talk with each person individually, provide sort of coaching and guidance and all that kind of thing. So he was really good and engaging there. And for the main event, the presser itself, I thought he acquitted himself well personally. Because I know we'll get into it a little bit. He was really talking about what he learned from being on the Bahamian national team, starting as an assistant, then graduating up to a head coach, being an assistant that started in the G League system, working his way to front of chair, to sort of front of bench, and sort of like how he thinks of basketball in certain respects, as far as like what sort of like is good basketball, having good vets on the roster who sort of like coach up their youngins. And for JK, I love talking to Cole because I love sort of like digging into like his basketball brain as much as he wants to share as far as like what he thinks of like philosophy and everything like that. And there was one answer that was really interesting that when we get into the particular section, I want to sort of like highlight and really sort of put a sort of special note to that I think is really fascinating. But I think that they did a really good job. And I think that for Liberty fans, based off the conversations that we had today and how he sort of like is thinking of the job itself, and then once we sort of figure out the roster, whenever we're back to work officially, we'll have an idea as to what the vision looks like and how he JK and Liberty management can sort of go about correcting some of the wrongs from last year and sort of like identifying where things fell short.
Hey, from Mexico. Viva Mexico. We love it. Thank you to everyone tuning in. Brian, you mentioned some great things. Just want to go around the horn. Damien, I stand corrected. DeMarco, not your boy, but we will talk about it. That's what this whole episode is about. You did mention Christy Tolliver. We'll get into that. Rob Monroe, what's good? Jimenez, Senor Jimenez from Mexico. Good to see you. Danielle Berry, always hopping in. Always one of the first comments, too. You got to love a prompt person. You know what I'm saying? I love that. So we're going to get into a lot of things like you talked about. I do think that, there were some interesting things. I think some things were illuminating. I think from Jonathan Kolb in particular. I think there were some things that I hope get ironed out as we get to know Chris DeMarco. Damien, we have absolutely no idea. I'm going to just get to this one right now. We have no idea what the coaching staff is going to look like. It was addressed loosely. And we'll get into some of those comments, but there's no indication of what that staff is going to look like. What's up, Winsome? Good to see you. Good to see you. So I think there were a few different things that stood out to me when it came to this press conference. And we have to talk about the big elephant in the room when it comes to women's basketball is that there are people that just flat out are disappointed that this is another man getting a head coaching role in the WNBA. And I'm going to keep it a buck. I've ranted about this on the podcast before. We've also seen the New York Liberty head down this road before. They hired Walt Hopkins. That was their first hire in the Barclays Center era. Did not end well in multiple facets, including the basketball, of course. Never could quite get over the hump, but was a part of bringing Sabrina Ionescu, was the head coach that brought Sabrina Ionescu to the New York Liberty. And I think it's interesting. You mentioned some of the athletes that were there. And I mean, I don't know how much you can read into that just because the offseason limited athletes are available. But what I will say is that seeing Sabrina Ionescu there, although she certainly didn't speak, at least in the video that was available, I think that's huge for a few different reasons. And you've talked in the newsletter, actually in today's newsletter, right, about this international vibe that Sab has. We do know that she usually takes her off seasons for herself to do some of her ventures. And to see her coming back to New York, to be here, to be present, I think that's huge. Because some of what we were hearing as far as how Jonathan Kolb views the future of the WNBA and thus the future of the New York Liberty, I think has a player like Sabrina Ionescu in mind. What do I mean by that? Sabrina, first and foremost, has a lot of crossover appeal into the MNBA. And this is for you, Lexi Brown. I don't know if you watch the show. I will never let go. I will never let go of MNBA. You could say is played out. There's a lot of things I still do that other people consider played out, but you know what? It brings me joy. It brings me joy. So that's for you, Lexi Brown. I ain't getting rid of it. Never. Nope. Not a one time. Not a chance. Okay. Anyway, back to the regularly scheduled program. Listen. She was like, it's tired. We were like, absolutely not. We talked about that on Tempestashi Talk too. So it's a callback. Anyway, I think that Sabrina also has a skill set and has attacked her off seasons in a way that we're hearing the New York Liberty want to offer to all of their athletes, and that they really see as revolutionary in women's basketball, which is also interesting because I do think there was some overlap in what we heard in season 1 of Unrivaled. And again, we're going to talk about alternative women's basketball leagues a little bit later. So I think there's a lot going on here. Al, you already know how I feel about Jingle Jangle, but I'm going to read your comment anyway. Sab is the future. I think the coaching pick has a lot to do with her. Yes, I agree. I 100% agree. And I want to get into some of the things specifically. I should have a clip here in a minute, but when we heard from Jonathan Kolb after they being the New York Liberty, Brian opted not to renew effectively. If you want to say she was fired, I'm going to just use the technical terms. Sure, her contract wasn't renewed. It's not exactly the same as firing, just from a technical perspective, but they opted not to renew her contract.
I guess for people at home, this distinction is important if you're trying to get unemployment insurance. Like if they fired you, you get it. If it's we're not going to renew it, you don't get unemployment. So
that's it. Yeah. So anyway, so with Jonathan, he didn't want to, Brian, get into what he was looking for in the new head coach. He said that explicitly because he felt that at that time, whatever he said was immediately going to be compared to Sandy Brondello. And I thought that was a considerate thing to do. I also think it was just kind of keeping the cards close to the chest, right? Which is interesting. And the reason I bring that up, and we talked about that because, I think, Ronnie, you're getting at some of this. Is this a home run? Is this the right pick? And we are going to get into that. And I think Brian and I might have different perspectives on some of this, but we're going to break this down. And honestly, I can't tell you right now if it's a home run. We won't even have an inkling until after season 1. Assuming he lasts that long. I don't know if we've ever had a first-time head coach in the WNBA get fired before their first season.
Wait, did Chris coach in the league? Oh, Chris was an assistant, so he doesn't count for these purposes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating test is a
Like, what would you have to do? Anyway, something I hope we never see. Anyway, is it a home run? I think it's hard to tell. But what I do think was very illuminating and that I appreciated, although I did think about what he said before, Brian, is JK, Jonathan Kolb, started his remarks by listing all of the things that the New York Liberty were looking for. Now, a couple of months ago, he didn't want to do that because he thought it would be an indictment on Sandy. I would assume that he did that today because he thought it was relevant and celebratory of Chris DeMarco. But doesn't it still kind of have the same effect?
Oh, because I think because when he said something, I think he said tactical excellence or some tactical competence. One of those phrases, and I'm like, oh, muy interesante. What
Yes.
was so I was like, oh, okay. I guess my brain sort of clocked it in the moment, but then I'm like, oh, you really want to sort of illuminate your new person as much as you can. I guess that's where you fully divested from the last situation, and now it's let me make sure that I put the shine and spotlight on my person to the way that they're really best situated and best sort of seen in a new light. And I think that part was really interesting to me. I feel like when it comes to what JK was saying, I think that it's because he always collaborates with the coaching staff, but it feels like now it's more I guess because Chris is new, this is where having a great GM matters a lot, because since you're brand new to the space, you're gonna defer to expertise. And the expertise is the former executive of the year, Jonathan Kolb, and trusting his evaluation process as far as what talent to bring in. So I think for the new coach, it's going to be a situation where you may not really have that much of a say in personnel decisions as compared to a Sandy who carries weight as far as being someone who can make those decisions, who's been in the league a long time, and sort of knows the ins and outs, and has her own sort of basketball, not priorities per se, but what is the best deep rotation player, not just stars. Stars can be relatively quote unquote easy to sort of pick out and things like that. But you really sort of delve into basketball philosophy a little bit more the deeper you go on a bench. So now for JK, it's a different kind of challenge to where it's okay, I've got to really get the margins right. And even more right, because I thought he did a good job last offseason, but then the result didn't hit, and now here we are. So now I wonder for him, it's where did we sort of fall short? And he talked about where I guess the sort of exploratory sort of autopsy of the season. It's why were we so bad on the glass? Why couldn't we do this? Why couldn't we do that? Is that a coaching thing? Could be. Is it a roster thing? More than likely. Now what happens when we sort of lose out on whatever expansion looks like and natural attrition from free agency? How are we to put the best roster together that minimizes our weaknesses, from our fatal weaknesses from last year, as it turns out, and sort of build into new strengths while also exploring new concepts and new ideas as to what WNBA basketball can possibly be?
Right. And that last part in particular is huge in what Jonathan said to us after the season, and then what he said again today. But I have a clip here that I want to share from the press conference, and the full press conference is on blackrosiemedia.com if you haven't checked that out. We are going to upload it later for our audio only listeners. Also for our YouTube folks, we usually go live here. We're going to start backlogging these episodes. So if you prefer to listen to audio, or if it's easier, when you're on the road, or, getting your, Kanye workout plan on, that's it. You can do all that. And always have Black Rosie Media and got to get up on the go. But this is a clip of the criterion. I always that's such an interesting
criterion, maybe
criterion. Yeah, criterion. Anyway, I'm just being extra, as I am wont to do. These are the qualities, right, that Jonathan Kolb was looking for and presumably found in Chris DeMarco. First, let's hear that. And then I see Rob, I see Damien, I see Fitz Carlson, I see your questions. I've already starred them, so we are going to come back. And like I said, Fitz Carlson, it's a little bit of me being extra. Criteria is the word. Also, criterion is also
a TV show, right?
Yeah, it's a thing. Anyway, it's a deep cut joke. Anyway, here we go. Let's hear from Jonathan Kolb what he was looking for when it came to rebuilding ? This championship culture. As soon as I find the video, I promise I will play it for you. Here we go.
When we stepped back at the end of the season, we started to evaluate not just the job description for the head coaching position with the New York Liberty, but really where the game of basketball is going within the WNBA. And we asked ourselves as a group, what qualities are essential to build a team that relentlessly pursues championships, while also setting the standard within the WNBA. And so we came up with criteria that we felt were non-negotiables for our future. And so to go over some of those, we needed somebody with elite level tactical competence, somebody who's a leader that possesses a deep curiosity for the game of basketball, but also an unwavering drive to uncover every possible strategic edge. We needed somebody that understands the habits that go into building a dynasty, somebody that's been in a championship culture and understands the cost of greatness, but equally as important, the accountability that's required to sustain that greatness. And then just as critically, as we enter, unprecedented levels of expansion within our league, we needed an industry leader when it comes to player development. We have to be an organization where our star players are routinely adding layers to their game, but also where our role players are developing and turning into starters. And we need to plant our flag as the home of development, where players around the league know that this is where you come if you want to be at your very best.
Okay, I want to stop there because what I was alluding to is the unrivaled impact. Okay. In the first season of Unrivaled, everything that we were hearing was about how this was an opportunity in the offseason. Yes, it's 3x3, but the format follows how basketball is taught. So when you're in the gym, when you're putting up shots, there are things that you do individually. There are one-on-one things. There are 3-on-3 things. And we'll even get to it because I have a whole host of notes from what we heard. But this idea of being an industry leader in player development, I thought was really interesting because we know last season they brought in Andrew Wade, who's a head coach in Unrivaled. Brianna Stewart obviously is with the team and is a part of Unrivaled. I found that endlessly fascinating. And I will get into Sandy Brondello. For those who are in our Slack channel, you already know I alluded to some of this. But I'll get to Sandy Brondello and some of the comps because I think we have to go back and forward and look to the future, but also pull back a little bit in this conversation. We're not going to talk too much about Sandy Brondello today. We're going to focus on Chris. But as the comparison, what did Sandy not have? What does Chris maybe have? I think you can do that and still ask the question, as many people are doing in the chat, Brian, is this a home run hire? Because I've been going on the record and saying it has to be a home run. I'm not going to answer that right now. I want to break down some things first, and then I want to hear from the folks in our comments because I think there are a lot of different ways to break this down. And my ultimate judgment or indictment, perhaps, will come once we start seeing wins and losses. But that's the big question: is this a home run? Again, let's finish out the criteria. I'm going to go over them again, but I want you to hear what Jonathan Kolb is saying. And that player development, I think, is huge and shows us what he, again, sees as the future or even the now of the WNBA. And it goes to something that Sue Bird has said on her Bird's Eye View podcast. All right, continue on with Jonathan Kolb about the criteria for the next head coach?
So with that criteria, we then cast a wide net, and we had the opportunity to speak to truly some amazing candidates. We looked at head coaches, assistant coaches. We looked at college programs as well as the NBA, and we really just let the evidence guide us. And as we went through our process, it just became evident that Chris DeMarco was the personification of the profile we're looking for.
So that is a partial clip. Again, the full video you can find on blackrosymedia.com. But as a summary, these are the criteria, Brian, that we heard. Elite level tactical competence. A leader with deep curiosity. An unwavering drive to uncover every possible strategic edge. And having the habits that, or I suppose what he's trying to say here is already innately, or having collected the habits and knowing how to identify the habits that go into building a dynasty. He talks about how Chris has been in a championship culture. He spent 14 seasons in one capacity or another with Golden State. So that's where that comes from. Jonathan Kolb also mentions the accountability required to sustain the greatness of a level of an organization of the caliber of Golden State. And I think that's a big highlight here. We have not seen a proper WNBA dynasty in quite some time. And I don't think it's hyperbolic or
You got it.
or homerism to say that the New York Liberty, if they compare themselves to other WNBA franchises, the Las Vegas Aces is one of them on multiple levels, including that on the court. We're really in a budding rivalry, which I'm sure the New York Liberty, I certainly, as someone who hosts a New York Liberty podcast, hope will be ongoing. But the only way to have that be ongoing is, again, highlighting what he said, the use of these words together, the accountability required to sustain greatness. That's telling. Is it an indictment on Sandy? Honestly, some of this I think about Sandy and maybe what she isn't. Not necessarily in a bad way. I've gone on the record. I will continue to say Sandy Brondello is a great coach. I do believe that. And I believe she has the personable skills. She's able to really work with people, but specifically players. She understands players. She talks to players in a way that players want to be spoken to, from everything that I ever hear. And I think that we've talked about this before. For some of the tactical things, she brings in people. Andrew Wade is someone she brought in. Mm-hmm. You know, Zach, Sonia, she brought them in.
Yep. Coach Ron came with her.
You know what I'm saying? So she has talent. I think the rub seemed to be, and we've heard Sandy Brondello talk to Sue Bird, talk to other people. It seemed that the road was, splitting. And the Liberty wanted to go away, that they didn't feel Sandy Brondello was equipped to take them. For you, Brian, of these criteria, was there one that stood out to you the most?
I think the one about sort of like the flexibility one, the third bullet point, I was like, because I know that's where we talked about it at the end of the season, where it's this lineup isn't quite hitting. Do you want to go with something else? The answer was no. And then what happens? You fall a little bit short. And now I wonder for them, it's a situation where do you want someone that will be a little bit more malleable when it comes to building out lineups and expanding a rotation when the moment calls for it? Because one of the knocks that people had on Sandy is that the rotation was the rotation. And if you were out the rotation, you couldn't get in. Like, cause I know in the middle of the season, so many people in the comments here and in other spaces were like, why isn't Beck Gardner playing? And then at the end, Beck is back in rotation. And it's like in that middle when everything started to sort of like collapse in due to injuries, could that have been someone you incorporated a little bit more? And could that have been someone that sort of like saved a few, so like took a few miles off Leonie Fibich's tires in a respect? So I think that part illuminated it to me. And I think also, I think for some folks who I think would be extra critical of Sandy in this moment and using what Kolb said as Sandy ain't got it like that. I think ultimately, like 4 years is a long time. Like Larry Bird has the famous quote of like, coach, I only keep coaches for 3 years because by year 4, everyone's tired of each other. So it's like, and listening to what Sandy was saying, it's like, I think she felt, I'd like to try a new adventure myself too. Like, so it's more like to that point we were talking about earlier, where it's like the roads are falling apart, and it's not like a get out of my house. It's I want to try something new. I want to try something new. We shake hands and then we go amicably. So I think, I think that part really illuminated, and she seems happy in Toronto. Like, and she seems like in a good space there, and in talking about her time in New York. So it's not like it's not beef as far as like that kind of thing goes. And I think for Chris coming in, the part about the tactical piece is really interesting. And we want to get into a little bit later, but I've just been like, I was talking to a friend of mine before we hopped on, like my brain is thinking about like spacing. I wish I had a chance to ask him in the scrum after at the Brooklyn Training Center what spacing principles, so like what spacing concepts work for him in the sense of beyond just, because I know like a lot of time when we think of like spacing, it's just jack up threes. And I'm like, there's more than that. Like it's how you leverage the roster you have, how you sort of like make use of players, how you sort of like get 2 feet in the paint, how you're able to leverage someone's ability from deep, how you're able to do those kind of things, and how you're able to use the whole court. Because I know a lot of times on the men's side in particular, where Chris is coming from, that mid-range area is so demonized, I think is the word to put for it, where it's like, that's a bad. Every time I see mid-range people talk about mid-range shots, that's a bad shot, and I'm like, in a W, that's you get the shots that are there. Not everything needs to be at the rim or just like a 3 only. You can utilize the entire court and make use of the sort of like dimensions you have and sort of build out that way. So for Chris, if I get a chance to catch him one of these days, I'll be like, hey, how do you sort of see sort of like what constitutes good spacing? What's a good sort of flow on offense? Like what sort of like to tie to the flexibility and malleability piece? How do you sort of like leverage the talents of the roster you have to get the most out of their individual skills while adding more to their tool belt, while also getting the best quality shot every possession down and minimizing turnovers and doing those small principles that really that stand out to you as a priority and to Kolb as far as he's thinking too?
Yeah, for sure. I want to circle back to some of the comments. I was just looking and I want to read I didn't grab this clip, but I want to read the transcript on one of the things that made circles and that I think is worth talking about, because it seems like people interpreted things a few different ways. But Rob Monroe is saying, and this is when I was asking, if what Jonathan said about Chris is an indictment on Sandy. Rob saying it absolutely does. JK wants a coach that adapts to teams and situations better, one who will develop players and maximize the full roster. Ronnie typed this while we had the clip from Jonathan Cole playing, saying, I took what Chris said about development and I see our young stars, Niara, and the younger players in the EuroLeague. I hope this player development will get me off the fence. So I think I'm with you. Damien saying Kolb can talk the talk, but can he walk the walk in terms of what he should have been doing last year or so? And I want to emphasize the last part of this comment, because as I said in Slack earlier today, and as I say, especially on Tempestagi Talk, anytime that you have a team that has the players that the New York Liberty have on their roster and they can't reach their goals, yes, people are going to look at the coach inevitably. And if we're talking about spacing, if we're talking about ability to shoot mid-range, if we're talking about a lot of different things, including the coach, who's responsible for those things?
Mm-hmm.
The general manager handles the roster and the head coaching. That's part of the job responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So, a coach can help a franchise recruit, but unless it's explicitly stated or you have a coach GM, which we used to have a lot of in the WNBA, coach is not directly recruiting and signing players. Again, they are very likely to impact, especially if free agents want to sign, right? But that's not their job. So when you have a GM that's admitting that the roster construction is wrong and using it to justify a coach firing, I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused. I will say I don't think Jonathan did that as much as sometimes you see there's a propensity for GMs to kind of toss all the problems with the coach, like the change in the coach is going to fix it. Oop, oop, oop. Chicago. Oop, oop. No, Seattle. What? What? Who said that?
Who said that?
Who said that? I hope that's not the case in New York. And what I appreciate about Jonathan is, in his way, I think he's taken and is taking responsibility to kind of, one, right the ship, but also, I'm sure, at least in part or subconsciously, to try and extend his tenure with the New York Liberty. But again, the question is this a home run hire? I don't know that I'll have a concrete answer. I can tell you right now, you and I both are baseball fans, Mets fans, unfortunately. No more polar bear. Like, it's been a tough 24 hours. I was going to wear a Mets hat today, like my Shea neon one. And I was like, I can't even. It's too much. It's too much. Anyway, we'll have to commiserate on another podcast. But the reason I mentioned baseball is because you can tell, right? Maybe basketball a little bit, but in baseball, you can kind of tell when someone walks up to the plate if that thing is getting launched. You can kind of tell. You know what I'm saying? Like, it don't mean they're gonna hit a home run every time, but you know they can hit that thing. Okay? I didn't get that feeling from this press conference. Like, okay, here's so and so at the plate. We about to witness some fireworks. I didn't get that. But that's not always how basketball makes me feel, if I'm being honest. But if we're using the home run, as the comp, as the analogy, as what we're looking for, I can tell you on vibes alone, I'm not feeling home run. I'm not feeling home run. I'm feeling that this is a process, and I respect that. I'm very process oriented. I love when people lean into leadership development, and I just still have questions as to the ability of this very brand new head coach to come to a league where he's having to order books about the New York. I don't even know how many books are written about the New York Liberty, and I host a New York Liberty podcast. But this man said, when asked, because he said, what was the quote? Let me pull up the quote that he used. He said that this is the best opportunity in the WNBA. He said this is where he wants to be. And so then somebody asked him, okay, well, when did you know you wanted to be a WNBA coach? And brother was like, oh, well, I mean, I don't know if I can pinpoint it exactly, I know that I want to be a play-by-play broadcaster in hockey again. I know that I want to do that. I 100% know. And I can tell you when I knew I wanted to do it, why I want to do it, who I listened to. I didn't get that from Chris DeMarco. He said the WNBA is the destination, but wasn't able to articulate why. And maybe that's just how he talks. But he was given the opportunity and he didn't do it. Is it the end of the world? Does it mean that he can't get up to the plate and hit a home run? Absolutely not. I'm just saying, when people go to the MNBA, they usually know what they're getting into. They know what kind of coaches they idolize or want to learn from. They have an idea of the history and maybe are buying additional books, but have at least read a book about the MNBA. I mean, that to me was, I think, you know, he works in NBA Enterprises in the MNBA. So he knows, right, that the WNBA exists. It sounded from what Jonathan said that a part of the reason that he got as far as he did in the hiring process is because, let's see, what exactly did he say? He said it was the tactical session where Chris excelled.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
So even though I don't feel that Chris gave a very good response as to why the WNBA is a destination, again, he was like, I've been reading, I bought every book about the New York Liberty. Somebody Google it for me now or search for it. I don't know how many books are even written about the New York Liberty. I couldn't name a one. Because for me, knowing about the New York Liberty, especially the current players, you don't have to read a book. Hey, you just watch the damn games. Like, especially if you a coach, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are we talking about? That was an odd response to me, and it felt like pandering, but it was a miss. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not even saying the right things to the right audience. I'll give another example. In Seattle, for the women's hockey team out there, similar situation. We're like, listen, seems like a cool guy, has a lot of junior hockey, aka young boys and young men experience, but where is his women's hockey experience? Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. And he's going to have to figure out these players. And so actually I asked the question. I asked him a question and it was a process question. And he talked about, you know, who's that coach in San Antonio? And, you know, when you have this coach, this is what they do. And so then I followed up and I was like, oh, so the coach in San Antonio, did you mean Coach Pop or Coach Becky? And he was like, yeah. Cause I said Pop first. And he was like, actually both. He's like, yeah, I like Becky Hammond, you know, Aces just won another championship. And of course we were in Seattle. So everyone was like, oh, boo. But you know what I'm saying? He could make a connection. And even though I was ready to give him a demerit for not having any women's hockey experience, he proved that at least he was a part of the culture and he knew who Becky Hammond was, that she worked under Popovich, that she was a successful WNBA coach, and he's working in women's hockey. That matters to people who follow women's hockey. I didn't get anything, not necessarily, I didn't get that he hates women's sports or women's basketball, but he also didn't, he had an opportunity and he didn't get me. I don't want to talk for you. He didn't get me to a place where I was like, oh, okay, this man knows women's basketball.
Yeah. Like I put, cause I saw in Slack earlier, cause I didn't get to stick around long. I was saying that I feel completely different from how everyone in a Slack was feeling earlier and the sort of general vibe of it. So I think my difference comes in what he said, the question before. Like I went back to listen to it again and I want to read it out just to make sure I got it right. He was saying, I have a lot to learn about the space. I'm going to spend the next few months to continue to keep growing and keep learning. And I think that part, I feel like that answer to me is really good because it shows that, hey, I'm brand new. I don't know what I don't know. So the best way to like learn and actually be fully ingratiated in the space is to learn. That comes with asking questions. That comes with going to places like Unrivaled, going to AU, going to Europe for all these kind of things. So I think I felt that I know that people like there was like discourse online about the book thing or whatever. And I'm like, I guess, you know, if you feel how you feel, that's fine. I'm not going to judge. I don't want to like be an asshole and minimize someone's feelings or whatever. So I'm like, okay, you feel that way. But I guess my thing is that Because if you're going into like a new kind of job, right? It's how do you learn when you're brand new in the particular thing? It's you read, you try to figure out what's going on. Like, and the great thing about being in New York in particular is that we are deep when it comes to like coverage and everything like that. Like it's newspapers, us as websites, individual folks. There's like so much to sort of dive into, and there's so much like detailed like analysis. That's where this is like a meta point to a certain extent. This is where having a market like a New York helps a lot, because we have so many different people, and the team reads all our stuff. Like they'll follow along, like they'll see what we do. Because like one thing Cole
JK made a little comment about that too. He's like, I see what you're doing out there.
Robust coverage of our coaching hire.
Robust. Yes. I was like, oh, JK got jokes.
Yeah, he got jokes today.
Pulling to me like, so is this a hybrid? Yeah, I think it's interesting. Okay, Tammy, thank you for your quick search. Apparently there's 3 different books. Now I got to do some research. And I think your point is valid. And because you're right, everyone has to do research. I mean, I've stepped into roles for the first time, never having men's hockey experience, but having women's hockey experience. And, if people want to be like, oh, you don't know the NHL. And sometimes I'll be like, you're right. I know international hockey. I know women's hockey. I know college hockey, but I don't have as much NHL experience. And that's real. Like I have to eat that. Same thing if, I was going to do something for the MNBA. I watch a lot of basketball at all levels, not as much NBA basketball. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the basketball is basketball, hockey is hockey thing, right? And that's fine. Both sides of of that argument are real and they intertwine. And at one point you go in knowing nothing or very little. And then, like you said, you read things or you listen to podcasts and interviews and you watch film and you learn more. And I do think Chris is open to that. The issue that I'm having, and I know we broke this down a few episodes ago, which translates to like a month or so ago, because we're in the off season. The issue that I have, and the issue and why I think it's becoming a thing on social media, is because to be a woman in a women's basketball league who doesn't need to Google search the 3 or however many books on the New York Liberty to know about the franchise, its history, its current players, the landscape of players that will be eligible to draft at the next 5 drafts, that's an 8 for someone likely who comes from women's basketball. And yet, we're not seeing through the hiring that is now a little bit of a trend. We're not seeing that women's basketball women's basketball knowledge apparently is not invaluable in women's basketball. Yet if a woman who has been herself an Olympian, been on an Olympic coaching staff, has been on a WNBA, NBA, college coaching staff, wanted to step foot and be a first-time starter head coach in the MNBA, would that ever happen? And the answer I can tell you right now is no, because it has never happened. But we get starter coaches in women's basketball, in women's soccer, in women's hockey, in women's whatever, all of the time. And that's the frustration. That is the undercurrent of what's happening here. And New York is being, perhaps you can say, caught in the crossfire here. But again, this is the second time that they've hired a male starter coach. Second time. The only time women, as far as the WNBA and the WNBA pipeline, and I believe it was our good friend Jackie Powell who mentioned it, it was a question that was asked, and Jonathan answered the question by saying, well, we can do that through basketball operations. And they have, the New York Liberty. We can do that through who we hire on the coaching staff. That's been a little hit or miss, at least with more recent WNBA players or recently retired. And so that's a good answer. And it's not, it didn't give us a peek into what this comprehensive search was. He wasn't asked this time, but he was asked when Walt Hopkins was hired how many women were interviewed. And he didn't give a specific answer, but kind of said something that insinuated or implied that it was about 50-50. But I was unable to be there. I would have been on Zoom anyway. I don't think any Zoom questions were asked, but that was not explicitly asked how many women were considered. There had been reports that Christy Tolliver was in the mix. And again, I've seen your comments. Actually, I haven't caught up. There's some new ones, but is this a home run hire? Damian has gone on the record in the comments today saying he wanted Christy Tolliver. Rob Monroe, I see your comment right now saying that Lindsey Harding would have been a good choice. Both have MNBA experience. Both have been WNBA players, women's basketball players. That's the big question. Is what Chris DeMarco gives on player development so much of an advantage, or at least does it meet more of what the New York Liberty want than someone who has women's basketball experience? And again, Brian, there's a world in which the answer is yes. And that seems to be the answer for the New York Liberty. Yeah. Does that make it a home run? I don't think we know yet.
Yeah. There's one thing I'd love to circle back on with you if I could. So the point that
Fitz Carlson, I'm sorry, I got to come back to this because I just saw this. No woman ever got a job by saying, I am open to learn. Bars on bars on bars on bars. What you mean you finna learn? I'm going to need you to know it. I'm going to need you to be able to teach it. I'm going to need you to take less money to be able to execute it and be grateful that I gave you a job. Skirt. Anyway, continue, Brian.
Yeah. So I wanted to sort of stay on the point that like I wrote in my notes when I was there, that the basketball ops hires are the key. So I'm thinking of that in the context of the current management staff of the Liberty. It's Piff, it's Andrew Wade, it's Dustin Gray, with Kia Clark and Clara Wusai sort of like operating the entire ship altogether as far as like lining everything up. And I think, and before she went to Golden State, Ohema was the assistant GM. So I guess I wonder how much, I guess it's not so much like posting bail per se, but it's you see the makeup of our leadership structure and you sort of see what we prioritize as an organization. Is that where you sort of like take that into account and look at it in like a micro lens of, okay, this person is here. Right. We had an expansive, deep process. And would it be suitable is the wrong word, but I think you sort of know the way I'm going with it. Where it's like if you put it in a vacuum, this is completely like it hits everything that you want in a new head coach versus zooming out into the macro picture where it's like, oh shit, it's the makeup of the league is like this. And we usually sort of like cover our bases in that regard. I feel like I'm saying it wrong, but it's like you know what I mean, where it's like, you know, that based off our track record, how we get down, we are a space that's welcoming of every person, every background, things like that. And then the path led us this way, which fits in the micro of what we here in New York are doing. But then you zoom out in the big picture and it's a lot more monochromatic, even if that's not how we work in the micro kind of sense. You know what I mean?
And that's what's difficult for me in this conversation, because I agree with you. The New York Liberty, I think, have been relatively good. I think probably more so on basketball ops, and then Sandy, just by way of being a former player, but then also being able to bring in other women specifically on the bench, first row bench, has been, it provides, I don't want to say cover. I don't want to say cover now, because I'm giving the New York Liberty the benefit of the doubt here. I don't think that this is something that the New York Liberty, and the something being including women, including melanated women, including former WNBA players. That's not something that the New York Liberty franchise has ever shied away from. When Cash worked and played for the New York Liberty, Katie Smith worked and played for the New York Liberty. Teresa Weatherspoon worked and played for the New York Liberty. So that's not the issue, right? On, as you said, the big picture level. But the timing of this hire, with the fact that you let go of your winningest coach ever, or did not renew your winningest coach ever, at a time where we're hearing that the organization wants to be a trendsetter, but by way of them making the last hire, it kind of looks like they're following the trend, which is what, Brian? That MNBA experience held more weight in this hiring cycle than WNBA experience did.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the reports that we hear, if things like what we heard from Lisa Leslie, that wasn't this hiring cycle, it was technically last hiring cycle, and a lot of things indicate that one of the places that she interviewed for would have been Dallas, who hired a brand new starter coach who they've already let go of. So it's like, again, and I mentioned this before, Lisa Leslie wasn't good enough, but, Chris Kouklianis was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up firing Chris to then once again not hire a former WNBA player. Or in Chicago, Teresa Weatherspoon, who had a better first season record than Tyler Marsh, gets the axe, but Tyler gets to stay. And maybe there are other things here, and that's very plausible. How coaches communicate, how they communicate with their players, with the GM, with all of this is possible. But again, the questions and the undercurrent that is being attached because of this being the last hire is also valid.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% valid. And it's not just noise. It's not just angsty women's basketball fans. It is women's basketball fans who have seen a league push political culture, social culture, sports culture, queer culture. I mean, the list goes on the backs, on the names, on the talent of Black women on the court. And yet there are no Black women head coaches in the WNBA going into the 30th season of the league.
Yeah. I want to keep you here a little bit more too, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I remember we talked a while back about the sort of like greater marriage between the NBA and the WNBA. And one of the big things that I've noticed, and it's been discussed a lot in recent years, was the lack of former players who are coaching on that side. Right. And it's what ends players who is this kind of player that's not getting that coaching spot. So, and I guess I wonder, now that the leagues are, I'd say, fully married in the respect, you can see based on the CBA negotiations that it's like a very much like it's a full, like the sort of like bond is complete and they've merged, it's almost like merged together as one in a particular sense. And I guess I wonder within that, a lot of there's like to the thing that Jackie mentioned earlier about the pipeline piece. That's where the overall basketball family has fallen short as far as what are the programs to get former players into the coaching side of things. Right. And now I guess I wonder from your vantage point, because I know you don't particularly care for the NBA side, which is fair. Like a lot of people don't care for them, which is cool. So I guess I wonder, right? How do you think the leagues, now that they're fully sort of like as one when it comes to like personnel going back and forth. Like Chris was saying that he talked to Nikki Wren, who moved from the men's side to the women as an executive, and then Natalie, who did the same from like coaching there, and then same for Nate Tibbetts as well too. And
right.
Yeah, so I guess I wonder. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I think what you're saying is like you wonder, where things stand now that I think the way that you've said it is that kind of MBA enterprises, so NBAE, as I sometimes say, that's the big umbrella. That's the top of the umbrella, right? The top of MBA enterprises, and then the trickle down, or if it's an org chart, got NBA, WNBA, G League. NBA cares or like NBA International or whatever they call it, all of that other stuff. Those are like the main things. And then everything kind of, all the people in organ. Okay. So if we're seeing more foot traffic between WNBA and NBA, how does that play out in the WNBA? But here's the thing, the foot traffic is not going in both directions, Brian. Statistically speaking, it seems to be a one-way street for certain passengers or for certain drivers, and 2 lanes for others. What do I mean by that? You mentioned Natalie Nakasi, Oren, Nate Tibbetts. He didn't mention Becky Hammond, but Becky Hammond's a little bit of, we're going to keep Becky Hammond out of it for a minute, because from a coaching perspective, yes, she came from the MNBA. We know she came from New York. Okay. She came from New York by way of Colorado. Anyway, but it's a one-way street for the Christy Tollivers, for the Carol Lawsons. Again, Carol Lawson was playing, or not officially retired, because she was working with ESPN for a while. I mean, she retired officially, right? Within the last decade, I think.
Fairly recent.
Okay. Christy Tolliver, definitely, right? Within the last 3-5 years. Why do I mention those players? Because they're seen as this wave, right, of the influx of women in NBA. Then you go to Jenny Busek, you go to what's her name? Harding, yes, but that's not what I was thinking of. Anyway, there's then an older generation that's finally making their way into the MNBA as coaches. And that was intentional because of coaches like Pop, because of coaches like, she's in Indiana right now. Carlisle, thank you, Rick Carlisle. They were very intentional. But Christy Tolliver, Carol Lawson, you have Taj McWilliams Franklin, who now works in the NBA office, technically on the WNBA side. They have very recent stories of no matter how many Olympic gold medals, NCAA championships, WNBA titles, they were not welcome to MNBA facilities to learn the game. Banished. I'm not being dramatic. Let me speak as clearly and just straightforward as possible. This is not hyperbolic. This is not an over-exaggeration. I've written about this at The Athletic, CBS Sports, High Post Hoops, Black Rosie Media, on and on and on. I've been following this story since I've been covering women's sports. Women are not given access to men's basketball in the way that a man who never played in the MNBA gets access to women's basketball. So the pipeline, although it's growing, has taken painfully long to get to this point. To now, we're seeing investments go up, valuations go up, broadcast deals go up, overall social capital go up, just to see the amount of women, but specifically women who account for upwards of 80% of the WNBA, have no head coaching jobs in the league that they fucking built on their back or the men's league. And that is infuriating. Now, again, not all of this can we put solely on this hire for the New York Liberty, but they are not immune from being a part of a much larger conversation. And the other side of that conversation is Fitzcarlson saying it's not two ways. I'm actually going to come back to another one of your comments. There is still something that I find promising and specific to the needs of the New York Liberty. I've said it before. I love Christy Tolliver, and I didn't want to see Christy Tolliver come to New York. I didn't want to see Sonia come to New York. I definitely didn't want to see Noelle Quinn come to New York. And on the experience side, Quinn, of all of those, in my opinion, would have been the best choice if it were not for some of the challenges that Noelle Quinn faced in Seattle were too similar to the challenges that it sounded like the New York Liberty were trying to get away from. But I never wanted, as other people, I think Winsome and Ronnie mentioned it, I've been using this term, I did not want a starter coach for the New York Liberty. Because the New York Liberty are still in a championship window. And I get it, 14 years with the Golden State Warriors. Let me just break this down. Okay? If you spent 14 seasons in the MNBA with one team, made championships, won some titles, but then you go to another organization, is it realistic? Will the average coach, Brian, be able to take 14 years of experience on a championship franchise and immediately transfer that over to a new organization? No, that's extremely rare. It has happened in sports, in basketball and elsewhere, but it is extremely rare. Things take time. You have to be an exemplary coach with all the access in the world, no communication issues, and everything you ever dreamt of, and some things you never even knew were possible to be able to have that happen. Becky Hammon had it. She's a great coach. And she had a freaking fantastic team that was built by bad boy Bill Laimbeer. I say it all the time. Every time I can tell this story, I fucking tell this story. Becky's a great coach, but championship number one was residual from bad boy Bill Laimbeer getting the Vegas Aces 3 back-to-back-to-back number one picks. Kelsey Plum, Jackie Young, and Asia motherfucking Wilson. Time Person of the Year. That's not what Chris DeMarco is coming into. I've already said, I think there's some chinks in the chain when it comes to perhaps how this New York Liberty team is even built. And he's a first-time starter head coach. I didn't want a first-time starter head coach because the Liberty, again, I'm going to say this again, the Liberty are in a championship window, or at least they should be. I think even if we took the injuries off the table, which is so hard to imagine, I do think there's a world in which the New York Liberty might have also struggled, even if they were 100% healthy under Sandy Brondello. So this is not a Chris versus Sandy thing. Now I'm talking about the organization. But baby, what is different? How many, Brian, this is a real question because I don't honestly know. I think I know, but I know it's somewhere between 162 and 84. But how many NBA games are in a regular season? It's 82?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's what the NHL used to be. Okay. I was like, I know it's either the NHL. I was like, I don't think it's on the high end. Nobody has as many games as MLB. But I couldn't remember if it was 82 or 84. And NHL, actually, I think next season goes to it doesn't matter. I'm getting lost in my leagues, cover so many leagues. 82 is more than double a WNBA season.
40. Right. Yeah.
Right around.
Yeah.
I guess we increased games too, because I'm still thinking 30 something. Okay. So it's about, but basically you are subtracting half of an NBA season. You spent 14 years in an 82 regular season regular season league, and now you're coming to 44, right? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
My man was freaking out about having to double dip for like a month between his assistant coaching jobs, roles, and responsibilities, and onboarding to the New York Liberty. And I'm not trying to say that to be an asshole. I'm saying that because, baby, if you think that's hard to juggle, now all of that championship culture that you're used to, slice the timeline in half. The budget, well, depending on what numbers you look at, it's anywhere from, I don't know, 20 to 80% less that you're going to have to deal with. What about your coaching staff? How many coaches do you get? Well, if you don't hire a former WNBA player, you only get 2 others. Oh, you just got charter flights, so I guess that's good. But enjoy those back-to-backs. And is the season actually going to start? Question mark, before we even finish March Madness? How are you supposed to recruit while also going through training camp? No, I'm sorry. It won't be training camp. You'll be in the season. Yeah? This is a starter coach. All of the coaches have to figure that out. I don't even know. We don't know when it's officially going to be. But if any of the reporting about the change of the schedule is true, every single freaking coach is going to have to manage. But Brian, riddle me this. Who do you think is going to be better at making something out of nothing? An NBA assistant on a championship with a championship franchise for 14 years, or someone who played in the WNBA, remembers having to share hotel rooms and flying commercial? So if he doesn't win, if they don't get to the second round, if they don't get to the finals, is that on him? Or is it the new schedule? Is it the GM? Is it the roster? Like, what are the reasons? What are the excuses? Oh, or does it just take time? We didn't give Teresa Weatherspoon time. Sandy Brondello didn't even get an extra season after a injury-riddled season to try again. And Jonathan Kolb himself said that they were thinking about that day in 24. She almost didn't have a job in 25. But this, you see, this is what makes it interesting. It's not a two-way street, not for women. And so while I do think that Kolb, and I already said it, right? I said it at the top of the show. I do think that Kolb had Sabrina Ionescu in mind because of how she sees the game. Sabrina trains for the WNBA the way NBA players train. I feel like she always has. And yes, he can bring that, but player development takes time. What we're seeing in Asia Wilson, it wasn't just Bam helping her with footwork. I spoke to her 2-3 off seasons ago about how she was changing her routine. So even if we are leaning into that this is a player development coach, which I think is great, I want to see more of that in the WNBA. Sue Bird talked about how, I can't remember exactly what the question was, but if I summarize, basically what she was saying is the one thing that she wished she started earlier is professional development. She said when she was coming up, your job, especially in her position, was to play the team game, to know the team game, to train the team way. And she didn't start individualizing her workouts until later in her career. But now she's saying that the trend in basketball is that everybody does that. So that's what we heard today from the New York Liberty, right? Again, that's what Sabrina's been doing. That's what Asia has never played in any alternative league. Sabrina threw Stewie and Fia Bone by signing up for Unrivaled last season, but she didn't do it this year. So I get that part of it, and I'm intrigued by it. But the other part is so core to a WNBA experience. And I think your point about the indoctrination of NBA enterprises, that's what the NBA wants selectively. Because for a coach like Chris DeMarco to truly be successful and to be a home run, right? That's the phrase. He would need MNBA resources. And even at a franchise like the New York Liberty, there are limitations to his ability, Brian, to access that. Mm-hmm. And so I wish that weren't the case, but it is. And so picking people just for basketball without having an on-ramp to access that he's used to for 14 seasons, it's going to take a learning curve. And my concern is that learning curve then keeps the New York Liberty or pushes them outside of their championship window.
Can I keep you here a little bit longer?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So now, right, as far, because I think he mentioned it in the presser earlier, like the importance of having like good vets on the roster. And this team last year trended a bit to the older side, if you will, as far as like age compared to like a younger team like a Dallas, for example. So I guess I wonder, right? I think we fully acknowledge and account for the deficiency he walks into when it comes to you don't have, like you have basketball is basketball, but your basketball is not this basketball, because this basketball is you deal with a lot more chaos than what you're used to in the sort of structure and the sort of like par excellence of the Golden State Warriors in particular, because they've been the gold standard organization on the men's side since 2014. So you're coming into a gold standard W organization, but it's they spend a lot of money, but it's still like there's a certain distinction in the margins you'll get to as compared to the sort of like free flowing nature on the men's side. So I guess I wonder within a coach like that who's brand new to the space, do you think having really seasoned sort of it's almost like you're building a roster where it's like you have a lottery pick, but the team before was like really hurt the year before, but there's still a lot of excellent pieces to it. Not that the players are like lesser in this concept, but I think you know what I mean. Where it's like, oh, I have a veteran who is a vice president in the PA who's been here for a decade. She knows exactly how to navigate the ins and outs of things. I have a finals MVP who has grown and dealt with way less resources in a situation like a Connecticut, where it's, oh, I barely have anything. Like we practice and the babies are coming for their birthday party while we're shooting hoops. And I have an executive team led by, including a GM who worked in both league offices before he came to the Liberty in Kobe. You have a player who recently retired in PIF, who was part of that last generation of players we were talking about earlier, like with Tolliver and the other folks who have transitioned to the basketball operations side of things. You have leadership that 7 seasons in the league, and they've really been able to stand out when it comes to like being exemplary as far as like providing resources and the things that a coach would need. So I guess I wonder, right, if we sort of like do Chris minus relatively speaking compared to the plus that I think a seasoned WM, like I think if you gave a person who had everything that Chris walks in with as far as like the coaching, the basketball of it all, if you will, but someone that did it in this space in particular, or at least had some time in beforehand. It's how do you sort of like minimize the weakness of the lack of experience while accentuating the positives of the environment that you're walking into? Whereas, okay, even if this part is a little bit slow to build, everything else around is so exemplary that the sort of like building process and sort of like getting your coaching sort of like je ne sais quoi down pat, you can do that without the full sort of weight of the world on your shoulders, as compared to a situation where the infrastructure is so weak and you're throwing a first time coach in with a roster that's questionable and things and turnover. Like, I feel like I'm everything I'm saying, I think I'm subtly describing the 2025 Dallas Wings with Paige Becker.
I was like,
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't intentional, but then the more I kept talking, I'm like, huh, it sounds like that. But I feel like you know what I mean, right? Where it's like, okay, everything around is actually top tier, and this person, they can get themselves like they'll get up to speed, and they've shown interest in wanting to do the job well and be thorough in it. How do you manage that weakness, especially early on, while the strengths of everybody and everything around you allow for?
this is a good one. I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
because it's a little off of what you're talking about. But Rob, I'm starring this one because I've also ranted about this before, at least a year ago, because we've seen this trend coming. But Brian, to get to what I think you're talking about, and also I want to address some things in the chat. And I think this alludes to what Brian is talking about. Yes, Natalie did not play in the WNBA, but she did play college basketball, and she is a woman. So she played and coached women's basketball, not to mention whose WNBA team coaching staff was she on? The aforementioned Becky Hammond. Chris Kalklanis was with Kurt in Connecticut. Correct. Never played WNBA, obviously. Never played women's college basketball. And he was relatively new to coaching and had limited WNBA experience or women's basketball experience, even just compared to Natalie, right? Which I think matters. For me, it matters. Then you go to someone was saying that I've mentioned before Sonia Rahman, women's, what is it, D3?
I think Harvard and somewhere else.
I think it was D3. Anyway, she's got women's college basketball experience as a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Only spent one season in the WNBA, but has NBA experience. To me, Sonia Rahman also limited high-level women's basketball experience, even though she has great NBA experience. I'm very curious to see how things are going to go in Seattle. But for me, Seattle and Sonia was a much better fit than Sonia coming to New York. But if I hear what you were saying, Brian, Chris sounds like he has a lot of potential to be a good head coach. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem exactly clear on why the WNBA was the place he wanted to be. I mean, now I'm a little bit nitpicking, but I just thought it was like, if you're going to say that, fam, I'm going to need you to know why. It's like a Swan Princess when he's like, let's get married. And she's like, well, why? Odette's like, why? And he's like, well, you're so pretty. And she's like, what else? And then he goes, what else is there? And she was like, red flag, all of the flags immediately. What do you mean, what else is there? There's a lot. There's a lot more. Go deeper, babes. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of how I feel. Oh, Swan Princess. If y'all don't know, great movie. Not Disney, but a great movie. Animated film. Like there's a bunch of what else for me with Chris. And I kind of feel like Swan Princess is actually very apropos here. I'm not mad that Odette wants to marry whatever that guy's name is. Let's just say it's Eric. That wasn't his name. That's a prince from another animated film. But let's just say it's Eric, right? I wasn't mad, Odette. Like get your boo. You know what I'm saying? But when you ask a very basic, regular question, and he's trying to gaslight you with what else is there? Skirt. Maybe you were nervous, but I'm going to need you to come up with something better than making me feel like my question was invalid. You know what I'm saying? And that's how it feels sometimes to see men get WNBA coaching jobs. They're the what else is there prince. What you mean what else is there? We got 29 seasons of history. What else is there? I'm going to need you to know. I'm going to need you to know. And I think Jonathan Kolb is right. Women's basketball overall, but women's basketball because of what we have from our good friend here in Rob. Excuse me, that's the wrong comment. You said so many great things, Rob. Here goes. There is more NBA influence in the WNBA. Back to the early years. NBA ownership is coming back to the WNBA because they're seeing the money. You know that money that they promise they can't give to the players? They're seeing it for themselves. Swear up and down, in and out, we can't do rev share, but see that for themselves. We see that in the capital raise. We see that in the ownership groups coming back. We see that in the fact that the WNBA, who Kathy's boss is who? Mr. Scream himself. Adam Silver. She does not run an autonomous league. The WNBA is part of the NBA. And the NBA, who swears up and down, in and out, that they lose money all the time on the WNBA, now has investors and owners lining up to get first dibs on all this money that the WNBA doesn't make. And so what do NBA owners know? They know NBA coaches. Chene made an excellent point that there are more MNBA coaches and assistant coaches than there are WNBA players. What does that mean? That if NBA is just recycling head coaches, then if you're an assistant, it's extremely difficult to get a head coaching job if it's just a coaching carousel in the head coach seat. So if you want to stay in basketball, you want to stay in pro basketball, there are now opportunities that pay upward of 7 figures where you can coach, still be a part of NBA enterprises. You can be a part of an NBA ownership group and one of their entities and get a job where your MNBA experience is valued more than it is in the NBA itself. And so what's not happening is that these MNBA owners who now happen to own WNBA teams, which is how they're probably making their money because history repeats, baby. Go read, what is it? Basketball, A Love Story, I think. There's a few of them. I'm gonna have to get back to y'all.
Book, right?
What is it?
Was it by Jackie McMullen? Like I know they did a 30 for 30 on that a while back.
There's a few books I'm thinking of. There's Basketball, A Love Story, which came out a few years ago. Jackie McMullen has a few books. Shea Serrano has a different book, but that's not. I think that was more of a culture thing. Anyway, my point is. And I'll find the source for you because I know it's one of those books that came out in like the last 5 or so years. But, and I spoke to Cheryl Reeve about this, which was illuminating. But when NBA owners wanted to get out of Dodge, aka out of the WNBA, a lot of that had to do with the losses that they were seeing on the NBA side. But then they change a few numbers and all of a sudden all that arrears, right? All of that money that's missing from their entity, they stash it in the W. So then they can offload that and get out of Dodge. That happened in Cleveland. That happened in Houston.
Detroit.
Like, again, there's so much history. Like, I know that history because I've worked in women's basketball, in women's sports. I know this history. There are people, Adam Silver seems to be sometimes one of them, that even if they have access to this information, they never tap into why we see things the way they are. And so that is perpetuated, and it trickles down into, again, we're talking about Chris DeMarco because he's the most recent coach, and this is a New York Liberty podcast. But the rage that I sometimes feel when I hear the same conversations happening at multiple levels without context, without an understanding that, again, the street does not go both ways. I'm willing to give Chris the benefit of the doubt as an individual, as a human, as the head coach of the New York Liberty. That does not take the New York Liberty off of the hook for being a part of the larger conversation. I don't think it necessarily implicates them either. Not necessarily. I have questions I would like to ask Jonathan Kolb to have a better understanding. And I think you're right, Brian. You talked about they have a track record of involving former players. I mean, Piff was a part of the hiring process. That's what Jonathan Kolb told us. So I don't want to implicate them in the larger conversation, but they are going to innately be a part of it because they're in the WNBA, because they made the most recent hire, and because they hired a starter head coach.
Yeah, I mean that's more than fair, and I think definitely as we've talked about it, it's like we're able to sort of like really dive in because I feel like a lot of times there's like a shutdown in the sense of, oh, this is what's happening here. Why does this? And it's like it sort of like unintentionally shuts off. But I think the word I was thinking of earlier when you were talking, not like cover, but proof of concept is how I would describe it. Where it's like, okay, here's the thing we've done. Here's what we did. How can we be better for next time? We highlight it and then try to land the plane a little bit differently as far as like who else we're putting into position, who else is going to be in those leadership roles and in those front facing basketball ops settings. So I think that's where you sort of like continue to that is correct.
Like, which way am I pointing? This way.
Yeah, so I think definitely as Chris fully wraps up his duties on the other side and then starts up here, it's like, okay, now that you sort of like gotten the lay of the land, now that you and JK have sort of like gone on a tour and check out the leagues, got face to face with people and everything like that. So I think that's where the keeping an open mind part of it is going to be critical, because if you walk into it with I don't think this is Chris, but just a general, I know what I know, I don't need to know more, it's going to fail and people sniff that thing out. Like on the men's side, there are coaches that come in. It's like right now, just as a brief example, in Memphis, the coach there, he's so set on like a particular system where it's like, oh, I play players like 5 minutes at a time so they can get their maximum burst of energy. Then I pull them. And it's like, you're not attuning and adjusting your thought process to the roster you have and the feedback you're getting. And now Memphis is a tire fire. And that's a first year coach who's coming over from Europe. So it's like now,
which is crazy because Memphis has been knocking on the door. Even I know that.
Yeah. Like they had them knocking on the door. Yeah. They had them knocking.
But then, they got what's his name? Does always having problems.
Yeah, John Morant. Yeah. Like they were knocking on the door for a while, and then the last coach they sort of tuned out, and this coach they kind of tuning out, and now it's we can't fire the person again, but the coach needs to like accommodate and be flexible with the correspondence of the people he's in charge of leading. So I think that's the wrong way to sort of like, I think as a coach, like that's a textbook example of what not to do when coming.
That's what it felt like Walt Hopkins was doing, to be honest.
Honestly, too, yeah, that's a great point, because I think within the other stuff that got him out of here, the on-court stuff of it, it's okay. It's like, because his whole thing was, I think this is where
I know. I'm like,
yeah.
I do not need all 5 of them people shooting 3-pointers. Absolutely not.
And this is where I was thinking about spacing earlier. And I think as we sort of get into like the rosters part of it, the deeper we go, like this is where I was thinking about spacing, where it's like spacing is not just 3-pointers. And then I take my 2025 basketball brain now after a year of like watching more, learning more about basketball. So like learning and understanding and seeing things work a little bit deeper on a more critical lens, if you will. I look back at the 2020 Liberty in particular, and it's like spacing is not just any old person jacking threes, because if you're like Kia Stokes and you shoot like 28% from 3, do whatever you want. As a defense, I don't care. Like I'm gonna do the like I'm gonna give you the shrug, because like you taking it 3 is what I want. So now, and I think now I'm thinking about Chris and the on-court aspect of his day-to-day, and it's what does spacing look like on this roster? What is spacing that's not just 3-pointers? What is spacing to someone mentioned earlier, unlocking Sabrina? What is spacing for Sabrina in a context where are you going to play her off the ball more? What does that look like? Are you leveraging gravity, and are you able to unlock this is a Jonathan question too at the same time. Are you able to discover why her 3-point percentages aren't where my eyes say that's a dead eye shooter, but then I look at the stats and I'm like, 29%, that doesn't feel right. That has to be a typo.
She had to hold the team down while everyone else was out. Yeah. And again, she's my jingle jangle. I want the keys. And again, I don't want to make this too much about the Brondello era, which had its good things. But one thing that was difficult, and we've talked about before, is Sandy has always wanted her 5 starters, to be solid. And her line of thinking, I'm sure her brain got shorted out. I don't want people to clip that. And like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about Sandy Brondello. Please, 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 please. What I'm trying to say is you can get stuck in your ways and it not necessarily be because you're trying to be stubborn, but it's because if you're going to go down, you want to go down with what you know. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's more of Sandy. I don't think it was a bullishness or a stubbornness or a lack of collaboration. I think that at the end of the day, Sandy Brondello, and she told us multiple times as much, right, Brian?
Yeah.
She is a person who, when it comes down to it, if she's going to take the heat, she's going to take the heat going down in a way that she is comfortable with. Mm-hmm. Now, what that resulted in for the New York Liberty, in my estimation, is that we didn't see enough of Maureen Johannes. We didn't see enough of Izzy Harrison. We didn't see enough of Rebecca Gardner. And it wasn't necessarily because those players didn't have the potential, but it's because for Sandy's internal barometer and eye test and breadth and scope of work, she was having a difficult time figuring out her starting 5 with the pieces being cycled in and out because of injury. That's how I conceptualize why things came to a head with Sandy Brondello and the injuries.
Erica, can I keep you with something that Cope said?
Yes, please.
I'm so happy to grab this because I hinted at it earlier. Because I asked Cope, I'm like, you mentioned sort of like being ahead of the game in the WNBA context, and how are you sort of like keeping those advancements and the advancements of basketball, and I think women's basketball in particular, how you're able, what does the hire do to sort of like get you to that space where you're one step ahead of the next evolution? And he was making the point that in the WNBA now, it's such a fascinating blend. I'll come back to that, Albert. That's a good thing.
We're gonna be here yet. Okay, I'm gonna start.
Yes, thank you. One of the things that Cole was mentioning is that in the WNBA space right now, there are so many different styles of play, and that comes from the different coaching minds that are coming in, like the coaches who are used to the WNBA context, the coaches who are coming from the men's side, and what
You mentioned Connecticut specifically.
Yeah, the European coaches who are coming into the league, and coaches who come from the NCAA pipeline, and what basketball ideas are there. So it's so many different hodgepodges coming together. And he mentioned the point of having multiple triggers to pull. And I think that ties to the point you were making earlier about the sort of flaw of, I have this one lineup and damn it, my ace, he's walked through people in this inning, but damn it, that's my ace. I'm going to let them go down. And it's now it's I think about it, it's you have multiple triggers to pull, you have multiple things to run and experiment with, and you have multiple ways to get at it in ways that may not have been present previously. And I think that's where the sort of like, I don't want to say advancedness of it, because Sandy was in those same spaces too, as far as like the coaching camps, all those kind of things that all these sort of coaches do now. So she's in there. So I don't want it to be like, Sandy is like Joe Morgan on Sunday Night Baseball bemoaning about sabermetrics or whatever. Like that's not Sandy. Like, I want to be very clear about that. Just
damn.
So like she's in those spaces too. So I think now when it comes to having the multiple triggers to pull, and I think this is where I think having 44 games helps, because now you it's going to be weird because it's a World Cup year in September, so everyone's going to be gone for a couple weeks again, so that's going to throw everything off. But in the lead up to it, assuming the season starts on time, you would, fingers crossed, we have a season at least. And you hope that if you have enough time to work with in the season, you have more room to experiment with different things. Because we didn't talk about it much last year, but one of the things that sort of like irked me is the wrong word. I understood why it happened, but the fact that Marquisha Davis couldn't get on the court in a 50-point game, I'm like, dog, like, and
those were like very egregious, they stood out. And again, that's what I'm saying. I love Sandy Brandella. I've said that multiple times. I'm not gonna hold all of her water though. Like, everybody, everybody has things, right? That maybe are their blind spots. And yes, we absolutely saw that with Sandy Brandella. Now, I didn't go as far as some people to be like, oh, Maureen Johannes would be a starting guard on another team. And I was like, fam, with all due respect to the magician, nah. I mean, I want MJ to get there, and I think she can. But MJ, maybe not the best example. Q, I think we could have found more minutes, like you said, that 50-point game.
And it's like,
Gardner, we could have found. Izzy made the most of the minutes she was given, and should have been given more. When KB was out, Niara was out, JJ was out, Stewie was out, Leonie Fibish, Fibic. I'm gonna try and say her name the way she says it. I love that.
Oh, really?
Oh, she's in Project B. I posted that in our Slack channel.
She differently now?
Yeah, she's going to Project B.
Fibic or Itch?
Fibic. It's like a.
Okay. I've always pronounced that. So
Fibic. Yeah,
Leo's so polite. I've been saying it wrong, and she don't correct me. Like Leo,
Leo. She's like, y'all don't know nothing. She's so unbothered. I love Leo. Leo's, man. Listen, what I say, I was like, no one's made me want to be German more than Leonie Fibic.
I love Leo.
Yeah, Leo. Anyway, Yeah, but all those players out, and we couldn't find more minutes for Izzy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are the things that made it hard to stand 100% all the time, 10 toes down for Sandy Brondello. That being said, that now we have to figure out if Chris, and I'm not using CD. CD only means Chris Daly to me, and she's the GOAT. She's the one who keeps Gino in check. She actually has more UConn wins than Gino does because she's had to step in when that fool got booted out of games. So Chris Daly is the only CD that I recognize other than the ones I used to play in my player. Okay. That's all I'm saying. That's we saving CD for the GOAT. The GOAT. Okay. Anyway, Chris DeMarco. I don't know what his balance is going to be, right? Maybe he'll be better with rotations, which will take. I still do think there's going to be a learning curve. I think there's going to be a learning curve. And my biggest concern about getting a new head coach, and okay, you can say he coached the Bahamas national team, and that does count. Relatively new head coach is, I just think that the New York Liberty have to course correct with a jolt, because the way the league is moving, they'll be out of the playoffs if they make the wrong moves, and out of their window if they don't get this season right. And I don't know if, even with all of the great things that Chris DeMarco brings, I don't know right now if I have the confidence to say that he gets this New York Liberty squad, whatever it looks like, to a finals. And maybe that's putting a lot of pressure, and maybe this is what ownership wants to do. Maybe they're putting a lot of pressure on Kolb & Company, on the front office, because as I talked about earlier on the show, roster construction, that's a front office thing. How you manage the roster that you're given, that's a coaching staff thing. But I think that this New York Liberty squad has to get the roster right for the coach they say is the right guy for the job.
Like I was talking about it with someone earlier. I'd say right now, if I had this like ballpark where I think they'd be in the standings next season, I think top 3 is my minimum for the group, because I think assuming health and assuming not dramatic roster turnover, I'm gonna operate on the assumption that the top 2 in some sort are gonna be Minnesota, Las Vegas, and New York, if at full capacity, is like right in that top. So like if we're doing the tiers like we did last season coming into the season, it's like we have the contender bucket, the make playoff bucket, and then the wait for next year bucket.
Yeah,
I have
it again, because right now it's so hard to do that. You just have to go based off of what last year's roster was.
Yeah.
I think if we go only based off of last year's roster, and I'm gonna put Messiman on the shelf just for a minute, because I have a lot of thoughts. Had a lot of thoughts about Messiman before, and I don't know if this season made it a sure thing that she comes back, and especially given what this window looks like, because if they mess it up, she's gone again, and that would be tragic. Because anyway, I got a lot of thoughts on Messiman, but let's put that on the shelf for a minute. Minus Emma. If you look at the roster as constructed, and given that I think there's a learning curve and it's going to take time for DeMarco to be able to do what he's supposed to be doing, I don't think the Liberty are a top 3 team. I think that they're probably top 5, but they're going to have to fight for it. Because Stephanie White is a damn good coach.
Hell yeah. Damn good.
And Indiana definitely had more injuries, including to one of their assistant coaches. season-ending injury, even for the coaches. That's how you know they're down bad. And they took Vegas to 5?
Erica, it's so like I think I was telling someone earlier, like Kelsey Mitchell's body shut down like the Terminators when they get factory reset, and
Girl,
that's the only thing that kept them from getting to the finals, because they, quiet as it's kept, if she was able to reboot in time, we are having the DeWanna Bonner Bowl last year. So
woo! That would have been wild.
And even still, it took.
I was kind of hoping for it. I'm not gonna lie.
This is where me not being on Twitter is so valuable, because I can enjoy chaotic basketball and not worry about chaos here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the Twitter, I can't. I don't. I honestly think they can finish anywhere in the top 5. But I don't think top 3 is guaranteed, is what I'm saying. I believe the New York Liberty can be a top 5 team. And top 5 is now, for me, like, that's elite.
Yeah.
It used to be top 2, maybe 3. We're not playing that game no more.
Yeah. Like,
and it's not just because there's more teams. That's a part of it. But that's what I'm saying. It's not the messy middle. It's not the back end anymore.
Yeah. It's so like
top 5. You got to fight for 5. You got to fight for 5.
As you say that, like, my brain jumped back to 2023 when everyone was like, it's just 2 teams. Everyone else is just like, you guys get out the way. Like, save it for the real heavy hitters come finals time. And it, despite Connecticut's best efforts, it turned out to be that way. And it's like, now you can, there's so much, like, the talent, like, the talent boom is the big thing. I know everyone's like, oh, the numbers going up, but like, the talent boom is really where it's at, because you can be Indiana at 6 and be a breath away from the championship round. You can be a team like Phoenix, and it's like, oh, this is the first year of this new group coming together with a second-year head coach, and oh, if my franchise player makes 2 free throws at the end of game 1, we might steal game 1, and then that series is a whole lot different. And if our unicorn doesn't get knocked out on the court, maybe the series runs a little bit longer. Who knows?
Like, let's just pause for the cause here. Can we please, baby Jesus, get a season where at least 50% of the Sabali sisters are 100%. Do you know we've never seen that? And these fools still get to the finals in back-to-back years. Can you imagine? You just talked about Satu. Like, oh, all this time. You know this, Brian, because we were recording every week during the season. I thought Leo, well, I really thought anyone leaving for international play during the season was going to be why the Liberty dropped. Because I told you, I was like, they're not getting the number 1 spot. I said that early, off hop.
I remember.
Because I was like, we're going to lose Leo. We might lose Niara. We might not have MJ. Like, all of these things I'm thinking. I did not know that we would not have Niara because of injury. We would lose Leo, and then she would get injured when she got injured playing in Indiana, that first Indiana game. And she goes away, comes back gassed, and then we saw what happened, and busted her ribs wide open. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought it was just going to be because players are going to be overseas. I did not anticipate the injuries, but I want to see a healthy Niara. I want to see a healthy Satu. Basketball is so good with them. I go back to, I was there at the Olympics, 2024 Olympics. The fact that Niara played 2 games and was a leading scorer for Germany.
Cooking. Giving it to people.
It's 7 games if you get to a medal game.
Yup.
And they lost in the semis. She played 2 of them things and was a leading scorer for Germany. What?
Mm-hmm. It's there. It's just
What?
It's there. It's there. It's there.
What?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. Like I said, I feel like someone should make me an honorary German. I don't know. But Rob, I like your pick. These are the teams that I'm looking at. And then Steven, I'm with you. I had higher hopes for ATL than apparently they had for themselves last year. But you know what? We all get got. This is a New York Liberty podcast. We know about getting got.
Erica,
And the Valks too, man. I like them.
One thing that's true that was true about the Dream, and this is me being a full hater, and I'm going to own being a hater here.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Trusting an Atlanta professional sports team is bad for business. Do you trust the Falcons? No. Do you trust the Hawks? No. Do you trust the Braves? I wouldn't do that. I kept saying on here, the Dream will let you back in the game. They will. They will in the fourth quarter. They will melt. Worst fourth quarter net rating in the W in the regular season last year. Wow. What happens in Game 3? They melt. They lose. This is why never trust an Atlanta-based sports franchise. The only one is the Dogs in college football. That's it. Everyone else, keep your suspicions up.
Wow. Bow. Shots fired. But also the accuracy. I mean, what can you do? It's going to be really interesting. And what's wild is, Brian, we're just going off of last year's rosters.
Mm-hmm.
And things ain't going to look. I mean, listen. Some players are going to re-sign, even though they're free agents. Some are just going to for a number of reasons, right? But there are going to be some players that are going to chase the money, whatever that looks like. And there are going to be some players that might have to go elsewhere because they don't fit under the salary cap. Because if some of the numbers that we're seeing are right, I'm not the quickest with the math, but as a former bartender / server, I could figure out percentages pretty fast. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm trying to figure out, yes, I see that the salary cap is going up as it should, right? It's going to have to. If salaries go up, the cap has to go up, right? But I'm still trying to figure out if WNBA teams are going to be able to carry more than 10 players and be a winning team.
Hey, Erica.
What's up, Brian?
I don't know algebra, but 1 + 1 = 2.
Listen. It's about to be wild. It's about to be wild. And I said it earlier, a coach can't make a roster or finalize they don't lock in a roster. That's a GM's job. They might be involved. And what did I say earlier, though? They can definitely help recruit. Mm-hmm. And it's something that we talked about this on We Need to Talk Now podcast. Lindsay Gottlieb, she was a Cavs assistant and is now the head coach at USC. She was asked by Lisa Leslie, USC legend, what was it like coaching in the NBA? And she's like, you know what? I get asked that a lot. Or what was it like coaching men? She's like, I get asked that a lot. And she's like, I understand why I'm asked that. But she's like, we never ask men, how is it to coach? Like, we never do that. That was the first thing that she said. But then she goes into saying it was great coaching in the NBA. She's like, when you're around basketball players, people who love basketball, they don't care where you came from. At the end of the day, when you show up at practice, they want to know that you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that you're not bullshitting, because they will suss out a fake real quick. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she was saying. And I'm going to tell you what, I was definitely thinking about some WNBA coaches that ain't got jobs no more when she said that, but that's besides the point. But I think that's what we're going to see. Mm-hmm. Game recognize game, real recognize real. And for the free agents, so this is top tier players, I don't think Asia Wilson's going anywhere. I don't really think Stewie is going anywhere. Unless they suss out, and I do think that top players who maybe are not as beholden to a franchise, or if the Asia Wilsons and the Stewies of the world, the Fees of the world, somehow don't feel quite right about the coaching situation, they're going to dip.
They're out the door.
They're going to dip. Who would have chosen to go through that Dallas situation? You notice how that was a young team?
Mm-hmm.
A young team
whose vets were like, get me out of here. And
and Lee Yuru, that worked out for her because she got more minutes than she was going to get in Seattle. Now, could she have gotten more minutes in Seattle? Probably. But also, Seattle got the number 2 pick and didn't play the number 2 pick.
There it is.
You know, I had to get it in there. So I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. If now all of these players, or a majority of them, are free agents, they're not trying to go through starter coaches on a going nowhere fast franchise. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's what the New York, because that's the thing. Yes, Chris is a starter coach, but this is not a going nowhere franchise, or at least it shouldn't be. It absolutely shouldn't be. We should still be in our championship window. All the more reason why I just feel if you're in win now mode, really trying to capitalize the golden years of having Stewie, Sab, and JJ play together, you need a coach that can get you as close to win now as possible. And I just don't know with his criteria that is Chris DeMarco. But comparative to who the field was, obviously the New York Liberty feel that he is. Or, and this is the real kicker, do I have to ask Jonathan Kolb about hybrid rebuilds again? I don't think hybrid rebuild is not. If we're in a hybrid rebuild, I can't even finish that sentence.
Can't go back.
I can't. I will not abide.
Can't go back.
I will not abide. We cannot. This is not a hybrid rebuild team. But if this is a team that, again, is looking to take full advantage of free agency and fill their roster with high-ticket players, and maybe thus that be a way to let out the door other players, that could be interesting. But again, and Jonathan Kolb knows this, they can't do that either, Brian. Why? Because there's expansion. What is it, 5 total teams? Up to 2030, you can build a quote-unquote super team, and every year you have to fight to keep it because of expansion. But what are players likely going to do? Veteran players, what are they going to do so that they have a little more autonomy? They're going to be free agents. They'll sign 1-year contracts. This is what we're going to see for the next several seasons, not because of whatever we get in the CBA, which also could impact that, mind you, but we're going to get 1-year contracts from high-ticket, high-value players because of expansion.
More players, more everything.
That's what I'm saying. And Sue Bird broke this down because we were clowning Sue, man. If y'all don't listen to Sue Bird's podcasts, specifically when she's talking basketball, if you a basketball head, you need to listen to Sue Bird do a basketball podcast. This child, like, she know her shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew that. But like when she talks to, oh my God, chef's kiss, love it. And I don't even really listen. I host like at least 8 podcasts, it feels like. So I don't always be listening to podcasts, but I will listen to Bird's Eye View. Anyway, but Sue Bird kind of broke this down for us, Brian, because people were clowning like, oh, y'all didn't take nobody from Seattle in the expansion draft. And Sue was like, is it them getting dissed or was Seattle playing smart? It was a smart move, but unfortunately Seattle... No, we're going to get into that on Tempestaci Talk. I'll talk about that some other time because then I'll go down another rabbit hole. But what Sue was saying is like there were only so many players that people could pick from what was available at Seattle, because the way expansion worked, you could only pick one player that was technically a free agent, because they got, even though they're a free agent, they were still hitched effectively to the last team they played with. That was for everyone. They didn't future think whatever team you played for now in 2024, that's who you had to be designated with for expansion. And so Seattle happened to have a decent amount of players that were free agents, but Valkyries wanted Monique Billings. So nobody got taken from Seattle.
Talisa, you were cooking and I didn't even recognize it. That's my bad, dog.
I mean, listen, Talisa, listen, you know how you can have something on the stove, but if you forget to layer your spices, it's not going to really be too much. I'm just letting y'all know for the holidays. For the holidays. That was a holiday commentary. We'll save the Seattle Storm commentary for when we can get over the I'm just saying that thing could maybe look good. Maybe even got a nice little aromatics. But do the flavors really pop the way they need to be popping? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, Seattle. I don't know if them flavors be popping the way they should be popping. You know what I'm saying? At some point, you got to get a new chef. Sous chef can only cook up what the executive chef puts on the menu. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying.
They hire the Bear next season for the GM.
That's what I'm saying. I see this. Al Page, I understand he's a rookie coach, but there's no guarantee that a coach with more experience will take the team all the way. I said this like within hours, right, of the championship win. I was like, I think it was, I know exactly who it was. Damian was like, Erica, are we winning? It's like, congratulations. Holly Rowe just dropped the mic and Damian on here talking about, are they going to win next year? I have my doubts. And I'm like, bruh, first of all, I'm fitting to get into a bottle somewhere.
Yeah, like.
That's number one.
We off the clock, buddy.
Right. Second of all, we walk into the bar. I don't know what to tell you. Second of all, nothing is a guarantee. Mm-hmm. It like, listen, I know I was a Houston fan. Let me take that back. I was a Cheryl Swoops fan. So I rooted for Cheryl Swoops, who played for Houston. So I was, amicable to the Houston Comets. That's the closest we've ever seen to a dynasty. And people would be like, oh, well, that was less games in the I don't care. 4 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you ain't got 4, you off the table. Sorry, Vegas. Sorry, Phoenix. Sorry, LA. Whatever y'all be doing over there. I don't know. You're not in the conversation of dynasty. If you ain't got 4, go get you some more. And then we could talk. So now who are we talking about? Minnesota, Seattle, and Houston, as far as best franchises, right? But nobody won 4 straight. Nobody did that. Now, what is it? 3 and 4 seasons?
Yeah.
3 and 4 seasons. That's pretty damn good. Mm-hmm. And if you count and factor in the modern era, I will say that's a pretty good comp. I think you give Vegas, they still got to get 4 for me. For me, they still got to get 4. But Vegas, they get 1 more, they might have it. As much as I love me some Swoops, 4 and 5, 4 and 6 in this economy, in this basketball. Yeah. You could get that. Yeah. But they gotta get 4. There's no guarantee where it's not, you wrote about this, right? Actually, in that Leo piece that we ran on Black Rosie Media, it is not a guarantee. It is hard to repeat. It is hard to three-peat.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't been done since the Comets, who then they were like, oh, it's hard to three-peat. Let's get one more.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that. It's hard to win. And there's less of a appetite to have a coach be with an organization for 10, 14, 16 seasons. Jonathan Kolb himself said it. The days of the Cheryl Reeve are gone. They did not renew the contract of their most winningest coach to follow a trend. I'm not saying that's a bad decision. I'm saying that's where basketball is. That's where the WNBA is right now.
It's like shorter bursts, like the highs are highs, and then it's a sudden peter out, or it's just like a gradual sort of like erosion underneath the surface that even people who are around in the ways that we are may not be able to sort of clock in real time. And then you look back and it's like, oh, it's almost like solving a mystery where it's like, oh, this piece comes together, and then the natural erosion of time. And I think also greater pressure in the sense of like, you're in more of a fishbowl now as
100%.
compared to the WNBA landscape of 2000, 2001, 2002, which is
like
a good thing.
5 years ago, right?
Even 5 years ago, like it's a different fishbowl, which I think is an objectively good thing, because it's more eyes on you, which is what everyone wants. Like, you want more people locked in, you want more discussion, you want more positive engagement, all that kind of thing. But within that comes the sort of like sudden pressures of the job, where it's I make it to the finals in 2021, and then Phoenix is like, you know what? How about no, we're good. Yeah, we're gonna hire Happy Black History Month as a new head coach. Sorry, and it's that's so like like.
Woo! Yeah. But yeah, and it's just like, so no, I don't. A starter coach could win, but the statistically speaking, just in sports, and we talked about this earlier. We've been on here for over 2 hours, y'all, which is wild, and I love it. But and we'll start wrapping up. But it's very rare. Like, you have Dan Bilesma, I know, in hockey, and then he bombed out with the Kraken. You have Becky Hammond, but I already told y'all, Bad Boy Bill built that team. He built that team. So that first one, that's Bad Boy Bill for sure. Because how you bet to win something. You leaving with something when you got 3 number 1 picks with at least 2-3 years in the league. You know, where your youngest has 2 years in the. I'm gonna need you to win something.
And
what was you doing?
Yeah, and had the best
Dallas,
the U League before
Indiana. Oops.
Who said that?
Who said that? Oops. Yeah, because other teams could have messed around and done it, but they ain't do it. That's how hard it is. But you have to be a good front office too. And this is another thing I've said, and we're gonna have to wrap because I want to get to what we're like and what we love right now before we get out of here. Baby, all this scrutiny for coaches, valid, needs to happen, and we got to look further up, because the great equalizer already has been for some years now. Not necessarily what is or isn't happening in the coach's seat, which is why, in my estimation, my thesis is that at the time that this was true, Black women were getting the target placed on their back. Former players were getting the target placed on their back for things that the front office wasn't doing. Let's break it down, shall we? Vicki Johnson, Katie Smith, LT, not a former player, but fell into the Dallas trap. Who else? What was her name? Amber, not Cox, because that's the executive. Amber, what's her name? In Chicago. These are all organizations that have massive flaws throughout their front office and ownership, and somehow they continue, or the collective we continue the narrative that it's the coaches and not the organization that's the problem. Where they do that at? Oh, the United States of America, right? Sorry, not a poli-sci podcast, but I had to. It was right there. Where they do that at? Oh, right, the United States. 1600 Pennsylvania. On that note, Brian, we talked about a lot. We're gonna keep this conversation going. Is DeMarco a home run? Basically, I don't know. Who was it? I think it was Ronnie who said the New York Liberty have the bases loaded, 2 outs, 2 strikes, and this is who they got to bat. Ooh, I mean, that's what you're gonna find out. That's what you're gonna find out. I mean, a strikeout is the worst thing that could happen. That's missing the playoffs as far as I'm concerned, right? For this New York Liberty squad. Don't even think about pulling a Carlos Beltran and strike out looking. If y'all don't finish top 10, something bad happened. Barclays is, I don't know, at the core of the earth, because ain't no way this team, ain't no way they should not be a playoff team. Like, that's crazy. That would be wild. I don't even want to speculate on what that would look like, because I'm afraid to put that out in the universe. I think it's hard to strike out looking as the New York Liberty, but New York teams, they'll test what you believe to be reality, said the Mets fan. You know, you can't sacrifice bunt, no sac fly. You got 2 outs. You got to get the ball in play. You have to get at least one runner across. To me, that's making it through the first round, I guess, right? You have to get 1 run across. That's bare minimum. Can he do the bare minimum? I guess we'll find out. I mean, should be able to do the bare minimum. But this is your guy. You got bases loaded, 2 outs, and you could pick anyone to pinch hit. This is who you chose. I'm not going to be okay with just 1 run getting across the board. I'm not going to be okay with that. So what's he going to do? I don't know. That's why we play the games. That's why we'll be back whenever the season starts, and we'll have our weekly shows to break it down. You know, like, listen, Albert, don't get me started. Don't even get me started. Listen, 2016, I remember exactly where I was. Elon University in Elon, North Carolina. AKAs of Omicron Epsilon were having step practice, and Erica had to excuse herself to watch this man strike out looking. I left step practice to have my heart ripped out of the chest cavity. I am not over it. That man made millions of dollars. He can be over it and be fine. I'm not. I ain't make no money. I lost money. Not because I bet and gamble, but because I'm a sucker and I spent money on that New York Metropolitans team. Time, energy, sweat, blood, tears. Don't be the Mets. Whatever you do, New York Liberty, do not be the Mets. We cannot strike out looking. I will not take it. I will not take it. Listen, every podcast has the potential to be a New York Metropolitans podcast.
Respect the Mets, Steven. Please.
listen.
Respect me in my morning era, please. I need
AKA my entire life.
Yes.
Literally.
Every day. Give me. I need the space. It means so much. I just need to process and I need it. I need it.
Listen. Winsome saying strikeout might even be the first round of the. You know what?
High expectations.
I'm telling you, a strikeout looking is not making it. I'm a clown, y'all, to the end of my days if that happens. Because ain't no way. It's even gonna be hard if that ball gets caught at the wall. If they get to the finals and lose, I'm telling you, this is what's wild. They set this bruh up. Ain't nothing but a championship gonna be good enough. And that's heavy as the crown. You come to New York.
Mm-hmm.
You might not know why you came to the WNBA, but I'm going to think you got to know what New York is about, bruh. And if you don't, you about to find out real quick. I saw Damian was like, oh, Gotham just won. Do you think that will motivate the New York Liberty? I don't know about all that. All I know is the last time Gotham got a ticker tape parade, the Liberty got one in their very next season. So, I mean, I don't know if DeMarco's going to be the one to hit the home run, but I'd be okay if that trend kept up. But baby, listen, let's put it this way. Who has to be on his coaching staff to get this team a championship next season? That might be the real question, Brian.
Yeah.
That might be the real question.
That's a good question. I'm trying to,
I'm talking about, I'm sorry the Mets happened to you. As am I.
Hey.
As am I. But you know what? I live this life.
Please.
I live this life.
Respect us and our bad choices. Please.
Ronnie, listen, I would love that. I would love that. That was before my time. I am 3 months older than the 86 Mets championship. That's so I came into the world and they were on their way to a championship. I have not seen one since. 2015 was a bad year. Championship or bust. Listen, that was what it was last year. I spoke to Jonathan Kolb. I think I put that audio up in Slack. I probably need to find it again for y'all. But Jonathan knows that's where this fan base is. Mm-hmm. Y'all wanted to move on from Sandy. She's still a top coach in the WNBA. I think she'll be great for Toronto. But we talked about it. Just two divergent paths at this point in time. But Cheryl's a great coach. Becky's a great coach. Girl dad he should have gotten a little bit indignant about the officials a little bit sooner. But I guess men don't have to yell about officiating like women do. He made me so angry with that. But anyway.
All the men wear like fleece sweaters now, so you don't have a situation where you get mad like Vic Schaefer will and throw your coat at someone. Like we need that.
I used to do that too, man. I miss those days.
Take off your coat. Really play up the histrionics to really jump a point, like because you can't really do it on a zip up because like
on a quarter zip, you'd be like wait a minute.
Yeah, it's over the top, and then like we get like you need to follow the Vic Schaefer model of wearing a team color tie with your jacket, and then throw that thing once them refs get on your nerve. That's what you need to do. That's
it. I mean, we'll see, man. We'll see, but this team has high expectations, and listen, Lucy, you got some explaining to do. If you no make the playoffs and you no win the ring, you got some explaining to do, okay? Okay? I listen, okay, let me find out. Damian talking about, I don't think that it's going to be championship or bust in 2026. Listen, Damien, I think that is a valid and logical statement. I really do. And this man, what is the leash, I guess, right? What is the leash? And again, how can he easy bake oven his way to accelerate the process, right? And I do think it's going to be in his coaching staff. Matter of fact, he better have all former women's basketball players on his staff. I'm somewhat joking, but also give the people what they need. Because this is what I'm telling you right now. Let me tell something to you. His learning curve is not basketball. His learning curve is the WNBA and the confinements that come with having to be a championship caliber franchise in the WNBA. So get you some former players that know the ills intimately well, so that when you're ready to pull your damn hair out, you've got people who are ready with solutions, because they've had to do a lot more with a lot less. Those are my thoughts. 2 hours later. Brian, let's end with, listen, what do you love right now? It can be any women's basketball thing or women's sports, but what are you loving to see as we close out 2025? What vibes? What is giving right now?
I would say something that's making me happy. I saw it this evening. Our pal Christina Williams shared it online. There's going to be a documentary on the WNBA that's going to be premiering on Peacock next week. I'm excited to see that because Christina's going to be in it, as well as some other great voices as well too. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. And I was talking to someone earlier, like I love these sort of like documentary stuff that's starting to percolate in the women's basketball space. And I love that there are more places that are being dedicated to telling the story of the league in an exciting format, like documentary style things are. Like Unfinished Business was really good. Shattered Glass was solid. Like there's so much room to explore in the WNBA as far as like what actually, like, you know, what the on court of everything is, and not the sort of like discourse trademark of things. So I love that we have a situation where a major platform like a Peacock NBC is going to be documenting the league and talking to people who are dedicated in the space and have been in the space a long time. So that makes me really happy. On court with the basketball, but for player side, I wrote about her today. I'm like, the Olivia Miles experience in TCU is really cool. And there's a part of me, there's a small, like 1% part of me where I'm like, if you get that 3-point percentage up to like 40%, do you? If you're Kurt and friends, do you? Would you? I wouldn't say no, but I give it a lot of thought. At the very least, I'd be like, hey, with the why not, right? Two excellent guards. You move the 2 guard that's there now. Be like, hey, I'll let you figure out where you want to go from here, but we got this thing moving. Like or if not, if Olivia doesn't go number 1, Minnesota, hey, we stumbled into our guard of the future. How about you come play with Nafisa Collier and Kayla McBride? How about you do that? That sounds like a great time, right? And Minneapolis is a beautiful place. You'll like it here. Why not? Hey, man.
Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night. We'll see you again soon. But, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned Miles and maybe Dallas, because something I'm super excited about is one of our content creators who's been with me for years now, Angelica Rodrigues. She knows I have a slogan. I love a strong crossover. we've had this idea to bring that to podcast format. Like, what would it look like in bringing either people who are already on Black Rosie Media platform, but more melanated voices and faces, and then we just have like this sport conversation. And I think that we're going to be able to do that pretty soon, Brian. You and I are both going to go to the Women's Champions Classic at Barclays Center. But there's someone else who's in the Black Rosie Media kind of catchment area that we're going to be hoping to launch soon that has some really spicy hot takes with regard to who Dallas should take and maybe why the person they think should be number one to Dallas was part of the master plan in Arlington, the Arlington, Dallas area. You know,
what the Polish are doing in Arlington, Texas.
I'm like, child, I don't know where they play because I don't even know if they know where they play.
They're moving too.
They are moving to Dallas proper, I think. Anyway, the point is, down in Tejas, we have someone who's going to join us on the mic, Brian, to give a super spicy hot take on who should go number one to Dallas and why maybe that's the move. That was the move the whole time. And Paige Becker's was a happy coincidence. Ooh. I think it's going to be an interesting one, but we are excited to expand our offerings at Black Rosie Media. We've already transitioned some of the hockey work that I was doing elsewhere. It's now at Black Rosie Media. So check out the 206 Sports Collective. Yes, that is a catchment for Seattle sports. So Tempestagi Talk will also be featured there, but it's also a chance to talk about the Seattle Kraken and the Seattle Torrent. And again, some soccer down the road, especially with FIFA, Seattle being one of the cities where the FIFA Men's World Cup will take place. And another thing I'm super excited about, I will have more details later, but I have been tapped. I have a game on the books, a women's basketball broadcast on the three-letter organization, CBS Sports. I will be an analyst.
Wait. It's America's leading network.
I will get to be an analyst on the broadcast for a CBS women's basketball game at the top of the year in the new year in January. So I will tell y'all more about that, but I'm super excited for that opportunity personally. So we've got things growing for Black Rosie. We have some things cooking as far as more collaborations, and I'm super excited to have some broadcast news for y'all. So all right, but for Brian Fleurantin, and thank you to all of you. I love how many Mets fans, like, y'all is trying to clown us. Y'all knowing y'all Mets fans too. Come on now.
No,
you know there's a lot of overlap.
you cannot hide from your destiny.
Listen, thank you so much, Winsome. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I'll tell y'all about it more. Thank you so much for the congratulations. Stephen, thank you for the super chat. We have some great things coming for you. But as Aloysius, thank you, Damien, for coming through. Great takes on Tolliver, especially. As Aloysius said, it's time for that Ellie wave. We still got CBA stuff to talk about. Make sure you bet on women always. And we'll catch you on the next episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Peace out, y'all. We'll catch you on the next one.